Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories like these. Now, let's get into today's story video. I headed to the hills after learning of my wife's affair. I'm not sure why I'm writing this, but now that the events have passed and I've moved on, maybe it may assist someone. After 3.5 years of marriage, I, 30 male, uncovered my 30 female wife's infidelity in February 2018. I had a contract job that required a lot of travel that also enabled me to work from home when I returned. My wife worked as the director of a technical sales business, which paid nicely. We had a fairly solid marriage, albeit things had grown a little strained due to my being away on business trips and her working longer and longer hours. Backstory: I met my wife, now ex, at a mutual friend's BBQ 5 years ago. We had an immediate connection and began up a conversion, and I honestly believed I was defeating the odds by being with such a gorgeous and well-spoken lady. She seemed to enjoy me for my rough around-the-edges image. We couldn't get enough of one another after a few weeks of dating, and the clothes simply fell off when we met at each other's places. After 18 months of dating, we married and moved into a large apartment while saving for a home. Things began to change after the first 3 years of marriage. I was still wild about her, but I observed she would start disputes over little matters, and she would get furious when I brought up all the late hours and business excursions that had become more common. She'd explain it as part of paying the dues as she worked her way up the corporate ladder, or at least that was her excuse. She told me I had no right to challenge her since I had been gone for weeks at a time. I had informed her that I could absolutely reduce my travel hours and that I had only been traveling on vacations of 3-4 days every 5 weeks or so. These debates were quite circular, and there was never a conclusion. In retrospect, I had no notion my wife was having an affair. Except for her persistent late work hours and our diminishing life, I would never have suspected anything. I simply chalked it up to her being weary from work. My ego, on the other hand, had taken a battering from being turned down regularly while attempting to start. I didn't see the rumored hidden texting, but she did have a business cell phone and may have been using it since she spent a lot of time in our spare bedroom, which she used as a home office. Kathy began coming home after work and then going to a work engagement for the evening about September of 2017. This increased from one evening per week to more than 3 nights each week. I'm not naturally jealous, but there's no way she'd go undetected, and I'm sure she'd have to fight off some of the guys at her workplace. She seemed to be simply engaged in work, although she was working with more male executives than female executives. My first inklings of her infidelity came about a month before D-Day. She had gone to the grocery before returning home. She requested me to assist her with the grocery shopping. While I was retrieving a few of items from her car's rear seat, I spotted something pink glinting from just under the front passenger's seat. It turned out to be one of my wife's bras. I know it's hers since she preferred the ones from a certain clothing shop. In hindsight, I see why there was a red signal with the bra. When she's in the mood, she always removes her bra from beneath her clothing first. I'm not sure why, but when I saw this, I had a terrible sensation in my stomach. I couldn't figure out what her bra was doing beneath the seat. I just left it beneath the seat. It nearly made me nauseous, and my heart must have been pounding like crazy because when I returned to the kitchen with the bags, Kathy asked if I was okay and if I had seen a ghost. I just ignored her remark. I tried hard not to seem angry or betrayed, but it took all I had to keep my emotions hidden. That evening and the following, I decided to try if I could find out whether she was dating anybody. I began to consider all of the indications I was missing. Except for the bra incident, I had no evidence. We reside in a pretty big city, and her job requires her to work in a downtown office building. I shifted my mind away from the affair concept for a while and thought I should pay more attention to her. After work one Friday, I prepared a wonderful supper and set the dining table with fine dishes, silverware, and candles. I purchased a lovely bottle of wine as well as a bunch of flowers. As usual, she rushed in after work. I pointed out the meal and everything else I'd made. She offered me a sad grin and apologized, but she had arrangements to meet her coworkers tonight at a local hangout. She said she'd grab a short lunch with me before she went, but she needed to wash first. My insides must have turned on me as I was rendered speechless. I won't tell you what type of wrath I was experiencing at the time, but I'd had enough. I took my corporate cell phone and placed it in the back seat. While she was in the shower, I had been considering this recently as a means to monitor her position using my personal phone. I walked in and through the dinner, along with the flowers and the garbage. She returned suited up and looked wonderful after her shower. "Okay," she said, "let's eat." I advised her to forget it and go out with her pals. She gave me an odd look and asked if I was crazy. I said how upset I am that you never want to do anything together. She grew enraged and ordered me to stop behaving like a kid and made a snide remark about having a short fuse. "Foolish me, I thought you want to spend the evening together for once," I murmured as I stood there taking it all in. She simply smiled at me and stormed out. I got out my backup phone and began monitoring my work phone. I spotted her pull over about 20 minutes away at a pub where she hangs out with her coworkers. I decided to go out and find her vehicle. Sure enough, it was in the bar's parking lot. I waited in my vehicle across the street, waiting to see if I could see her. I felt like a stalker, so unlike me. But I argued that I needed to at least assuage my concern about her location. I observe her leaving the pub with a guy around an hour after I arrive. He resembles one of the executives I've seen at her workplace. He snatches her, pulls her close, and kisses her. My gut began to clench. My whole body felt numb. They go over to another vehicle and get in. As the vehicle moves away, I try my best to keep up with them. They drive approximately 10 minutes to, you guessed it, hotel. I pull over next to the motel on the street. I watch as they exit the car and walk hand in hand into the hotel. I'd had enough, I'm a moron. I begin pounding on the steering wheel with my fist. That's all. I'm not sure whether I blacked out or had an out-of-body experience, but something within me went utterly blank. When I regained consciousness, I decided I wanted a drink. This is when my life took a turn that I could never have predicted. I simply began driving out of town, replaying what I just watched and, I'm afraid to admit, sobbing with wrath. I drove around 30 kilometers to the outskirts of town. I drive into a great small bar. I take a seat at the bar and place an order for a drink. I must have looked like death warmed over, for the bartender, female, commented that I seemed to have lost the wind in my sails. I half smiled and added, "You're welcome to say that." A man sits down next to me on a stool and strikes up a chat. I'm not in the mood to converse, yet something about this man made me feel at ease. We begin conversing, and after a time, the issue of my wife cheating just falls out of my mind. I really want to leave her and forget about her. He stares me in the eyes and smacks me on the back. He tells him, "Boy, you're not alone there." This occurred to me a few years ago. I think that these things happen for a cause at times. And believe me when I say that your life may now change, for the better or for the worse. It's totally up to you at this moment. Something about his saying this jolted me out of my gloom. I mean, I know I'm in pain, but I've always been able to view things clearly, and he's absolutely correct. We are now going to introduce ourselves. Ray is his name. He's a bit of a country boy, but he's the kind of down-to-earth person I like. He wants to know when I'm going to go. I suppose it never occurred to me to think that far in advance. I know I don't want to be around this lady anymore, and I'm having a fight or flight response. I feel really sympathetic to your position, and I have a suggestion, Ray replies. If it comes to that, and you feel the need to depart at some time, I have a mobile trailer on my land. It's not fantastic, and it might need some work. Why don't you come out and look it over and see if you could envision yourself living in something like that, at least temporarily? Stay tuned for the next part.